something kind of cool. Steve's actually going to show you how to make your own worms. And, I mean, this is it right here, right, Steve? I mean, that's what we're looking at here is all this stuff right here. And, you know, you can get all this stuff. We'll show you where to get it. And it's how many worms have you made, Steve? We talked about it, but go tell these people how many worms.
I got to trying to calculate it the other day, and from about 1988, I started selling them to customers. And each worm is poured by hand, individually. And during that time, I think that I poured somewhere in the neighborhood of 750,000 by hand.
Wow.
A lot of people don't believe that, but believe me, it's true. I used to do a couple of thousand a day, and that's what I was doing for a living for quite a while. And it's very back. My back won't take much of it anymore, but it can be back-breaking work if you're trying to do it like I did. But as far as doing it for fun, making your own worms, it's not very expensive to get into. I mean, you've got to buy certain things like anything else you get into. Mm-hmm. But once you get into it, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to make, you know, your own worms. You can get any colors you want, the styles you want, and you can start fishing. Everybody knows the plastic worm is the #1 bass bait in the world. And you go down to the store nowadays, packaged worms, it's going to cost you anywhere between for 20 worms, $5 to $6 to $7 for 20 worms, and man, that's, you know.
How much does it cost you to put one of these together, one worm?
Actually, you can, if you're careful with what you do and everything, around 3 or 4 cents a piece. Wow. And which a lot of people are going to raise their eyebrows that I would let out that information, but I don't sell them anymore. Right. And
there's an advantage too, right? Because you have your own terrains here and stuff, and you can kind of pick the bait that would best fit there.
That is true. We can actually do custom colors. For example, when I go to each year, my wife and I go to fish for smallmouth bass in Lake Erie, and they have a fish there called a round-nosed goby that the smallmouth bass feed heavily on it. It's an introduced species into the waters of Lake Erie and basically all the St. Lawrence Seaway. We even have them here, where they've come in on in the ballasts of ships that they pump out in the San Francisco Bay, and they made their way down the aqueduct. And any aqueduct lake now it's a different species of goby, but it's still a goby. Okay, right away, this is a piece of plastic that I'd already used, but since I'm going to be pouring a color today called amber blue.
Feels like silicone.
What I've done is I've just reheated the pot and taken it out, and now I'm going to put it back in the microwave and reheat it until it's melted again and reuse it. So there's never any waste with plastic.
You reuse it over and over.
Yeah, unless you burn it. If you burn it, then throw it out.
Okay.
This is what raw plastisol looks like before we heat it and dye it. Now, I'm a little different than most people. Most people like to heat it and then dye it. I've done it often enough in my life that I know pretty much what amounts to put in there. So what I'm going to do right now...
Where do you get this stuff at? First of all,
okay, there's a couple of places. One of them you can get it from M&F Manufacturing Company. They're in Texas.
Okay.
Just look up M&F online.
Here, real close so I can get a zoom in on that. Oh, can I get it? I don't know if I can zoom it. Oh, well, I'll tell you. It's 817-281-9488.
And the other place that you can, that I use quite heavily is called Lurcraft. And they're in Indiana, Salisbury, Indiana. Both of them are very well known. They have reasonable prices on their stuff. You don't have to buy bulk items like I did when I was pouring. So I've had some of these, for example, I've had some of these bottles for going on 20 years now. That I've never used them all, even though I use them almost daily.
So it goes a long way.
It goes a long way. What I've done lately is I've switched over to real tiny bottles.
Yeah, it seems like a...
1 fluid ounce, and this will last you, my gosh, it'll last you for thousands and thousands and thousands of worms, you know.
Okay. So sometimes smaller is better.
Sometimes it is. Polyester glitter, they have it there. I got this from M&F. Different colors, different sizes, and I'll be showing you that. As we go in there. Other than that, it's fairly, there's some safety factors that you want to, keep in mind, that you are dealing with extremely hot plastic, about 375 degrees, some cases hotter. So you're going to have to be real careful. I always wear glasses and an apron of some sort. And here again, I use the pots that I use these are Lee pots, but I did get these from Lurcraft. And I've had these to show you how. I've only got 3. At one time I was using 6, but I gave a friend of mine 3 of them to use, and he hasn't returned them yet. Oh, by the way, but I'm never going to use them again. These things at that time when I bought them, they were running about $60. I think they're around $75 or $80 for each one of them now. You should have at least 2 so that you can have a 2-colored worm.
Okay.
Okay. Make sure it's shaken up pretty good. Okay. This particular color is called amber blue, and I know you'll have to experiment on your own, but I know that if I put about that much in there, I'm kind of different. Most people will measure it by drops.
Yeah.
I usually do, but in this case I've done it so many times that I know it by heart. But around 20 drops in there, and it'll change the color of this. Now you can, after you get this stirred and you got about where you want it, what you can do is you can put it in the pot and turn the heat up and just stir it, and eventually it will go from this to hard, and then it relaxes and becomes liquid, and then it's ready to pour. This one you just put it in the microwave as soon as it's liquid, because we've already gone through the other process. It's ready to go right now. As soon as I heat it, we're ready to pour. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these inside, I'm going to heat them in the microwave, and when we come back out, we'll be ready to pour worms.
Awesome. Okay, we're back and plenty hot.
Almost too hot.
Yeah.
But we just microwaved it, and we're going to add it to the pot.
Does that got some metallic in it, or?
This one does. This has what's known as blue neon powder in it. And
the glitter, that affects the way I mean, does the sun actually get to it underwater?
It does. It makes it more visible to the fish under certain circumstances. That's why you want to change different colors, for different water clarities and different depths. For example, blue and green are seen by fish at deeper than any other color. A color like red that you would think would be the brightest color is actually not very effective below, say 20 feet or so, because it begins to turn to rust and then to brown. So you want to use the reds up in the shallow areas where the fish can see them, and you want to use the blues and greens that are visible almost any time.
Okay, so this is our primary color that we're pouring in. Is there a reason why you chose this color scheme, or?
Well, it's because we're going to be fishing at a lake called at San Antonio Lake over on the coast,
Right.
And because for some reason they enjoy that color over a lot of other ones, this amber and blue neon. I think it's because it represents a fish over there called the San Ardo chub.
Okay.
And I always try to match my my colors to the available forage over there. I pour shad-colored baits because that's a natural forage fish. I pour crawdad-colored baits. I pour a lot of different colors to match the available.
So it's good to do the research a little bit.
It is.
To
It's
see
part of the
where
game.
you're going. Yeah, that's kind of neat. That's the advantage you have of doing this, right? I mean,
It
otherwise.
is. Absolutely.
Right.
One of the nice things about it, there's never any waste. You just pop it out like that, and you got a clean deal. Put it back in there and just melt it down.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty neat. We're almost ready. What we're going to do now is we're going to add some flake
Okay.
to the batch. In this case, I know that we're going to be putting some. This is my secret stuff. This is 125 flake, and here again, you'll have to experiment yourself, but I pretty well know how much to put in there.
Show me what one of those flakes looks like. Can we show them here? Just
They're
put
little
them-
hexagonal. Well, I know there's one there somewhere. There you go.
I don't know if we can see that.
And
Pretty big size, actually. But
that's very few people use that. I found out that it gives the baits a mottled skin appearance, and a lot of these gobies and the modeled sculpin that I try to copy have that modeled appearance. Now this is 35 plastic.
Okay.
I pretty well know how much to put in there. 35 thousandths,
okay.
125. And then this is 62 thousandths. So what I'm doing is mixing it up. Don't follow me, make your own colors until you get what you want. Every once in a while, when you're pouring, you're going to have to go through and take a look at your finished product to make sure that you haven't used up all your flake in the plastic.
Right.
And remember to stir, stir, stir. And we're just about ready to start pouring. You test it, plenty there, plenty there. We're still a little bit too hot because it's a cold day. And what I'm going to do is start pouring. If I can find my seat here. Okay. These molds, you can buy them at just about any place.
I want to ask you if you had any. I thought these were only 3 until I took a look over here, and you got like all you can eat. Yeah. So
what I'm going to do now is the very first one that I'm going to pour is for testing purposes. So I know that what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pour into the mold. Then I'm going to add my blue. And then I'm going to add another layer. And I'm going to set it aside. And we're going to let it just sit there. And for a few minutes.
what's the set time?
Not very long. This one here I'm going to let it sit a little bit longer, about 45 seconds to a minute.
Okay.
And because the plastic is so hot, eventually when you get the plastic regulated, then it goes very quickly. That's why I say in a daytime you can actually pour if you're really getting with it, and with having somebody sitting next to you pulling the worms from the molds as you're going. I was doing 2,000 a day easy, 1,500 most days. So it's you're working, but you're like I say, you start multiplying that out when you're selling them, you can make some pretty decent bucks on.
Yeah.
Your amber, you can hold that up to a background and you can see that it's a, and
That's cool.
you get a little vein in there. So I know that it's right.
Yeah. That's
What
cool.
I'm going to do next, though, is I'm going to show you this magic potion.
Okay.
This stuff in this is bass cocaine.
Uh-oh.
Everything in nature needs salt in their diet. And when you're a fish in the water, it's pretty hard to get salt. And where the fish get their salt is from eating other creatures, crawdads and fish and stuff like that. But you can enhance that, and that's what I'm going to be doing now, by salting these worms, so that when you cast them out and they go to the bottom, the plastic is soft enough that the salt will, when I pour it on them, impregnates into the plastic. And then as it hits the water, it starts bleeding the salt out, and it makes what's known as a mushroom behind this plastic worm.
Okay.
This mushroom, if a fish gets in it, for whatever reason, he's attracted to the color of the worm or whatever, and he gets in that mushroom of salt water down there, he has to bite it. Mother Nature made it so that, hey, I got to have that salt and I'm going to eat that worm.
That's interesting.
In fact, if you aren't careful, the fish will absolutely swallow every one of these plastic worms if you're not real fast, and get hooked deep. So you want to be careful when you're using salt to set the hook quite as fast as you can. Otherwise, you can kill a lot of fish. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we pour plastic worms in mass. This is where you're going to pour we'll put a little blue tail on it. We'll run our line down there to it. Then we'll make the top over it. And then I'm going to salt it individually. And that's what makes my worms so much better than, say, Joe Blow's or anybody else, is that I individually salt every single one of my worms.
Okay, we've got all of our worms salted here, and
they're all cool. And what
Yep.
we're going to do, first thing you do is I have a little deal here where no sense wasting salt. Inside the worm, all this has been it's not only on the surface, because as soon as you hit the water, the stuff that's on the surface is going to go away.
Right.
But at a real microscopic level, as this worm is moving through the water, it cracks from salt granule to salt granule and releases it. So up to 20 minutes after, if you have to use one of these baits for 20 minutes, it doesn't happen very often, you can still taste the salt on it. That's most of the guys use what's known as a Texas rig, and I can show you that real quick.
Okay.
Or they use a drop shot rig, and I can show you that real quick.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that's very cool, man. Look at that right there.
Total time elapsed about, well, from start to finish, if you're ready, about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're ready to pour, and we still have, I still have enough in here for at least another 150 to 200, probably 200.
Yeah, it looks like where we started here.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the rigs I wanted to show everybody, and this is a very basic rig that's used all over the world today. Invented by people in Japan way back in the 80s. But it's called a drop shot rig, and your weight's on the bottom, and you use a drop shot hook. And all you do is just take your worm, and it's so simple, it's stupid. You're just going to put it right through the head of the worm, and it just sits there like this, and then you just shake it, and the weight doesn't move. It just stays in one place, and the fish will come up, you get inside of the salt mushroom, and you've got to eat it. Okay, that's one. And the next step, I'll show you a second way of rigging. Okay, in this next instance, what I'm going to show you, and this hook is way too big for the job, okay, but I'm doing it so that you can see it a lot easier. But what you're going to do is you're going to hold the hook with the point straight down and the worm hanging straight down. And you're going to insert right in the very tip of the worm, just about that far, 1/4 of an inch, no further. And then you're going to pull it out. Okay? Notice it came out right directly in the very bottom, that's where the salt is, in the flat part. And we're going to push it all the way up onto the hook. Keep pushing until it covers up the eye, and then turn it around. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to mark an imaginary spot on the plastic worm where, to keep this worm straight, this hook has to go in. In that case, it's right here. So go right dead center in the middle again, push it through so the worm is straight, and you can feel, ouch, you can feel the deal. Now you can cast it out, your worm will stay straight and look like something alive in the water. The biggest mistake a lot of people make when they're fishing a plastic worm is they don't know how to put their baits on straight, and the worms twirl in the water, they don't look natural. And remember, bass, and like any other game fish like trout or whatever, they like a natural looking bait. Listen, you guys have been great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Anytime anybody needs any help, pick up the phone, call me, or get me on Facebook, and we'll talk.
We got to get out there and see how these things work, man.
I want to get you out.
We're going to see how we're going to put them to the test here.
You're going to be amazed at how well they work.
Well, this is Billy, and we got Steve here, and this is BTUFF, man. There it is, making your own worms. Very cool.